In February of 2022, France withdrew its military forces stationed in Mali amid public and political pressure. This withdrawal put in jeopardy the future of Operation Barkhane, a French-led operation to combat terrorism in Sahel, a war-torn and unstable region in Africa, bordering the Sahara Desert. It's been plagued by violence, poverty, and famine, and political volatility. At the center of this withdrawal may have been efforts by the Wagner Group, which is a shadowy group of private military contractors with reported ties to the Kremlin. French counterterrorism efforts in Mali, one of France's former colonies, has been ongoing for almost a decade, starting in 2013 with Operation Barkhane, which drove Islamic militants out of northern Mali. The success of this operation led French and other European leaders to initiate Operation Barkhane, a French-led multinational effort to combat extremism throughout the Sahel, an operation which has been ongoing since 2014. France maintained warm diplomatic relations with Mali in the wake of a coup in 2020. But these relations began to sour in May of 2021, when Paris, sympathizing transitional President Wagner, was overthrown by and replaced by Colonel Assimi Goïta, causing the French to temporarily suspend its operations in the country. Relations have only continued to deteriorate since then, including the ruling junta refusing to organize elections despite what was previously promised, and demanding the withdrawal of Danish troops from the country, diminishing the effectiveness of the international effort. Overall, French failures in Mali and the Sahel at large are multifaceted and very complex. One of the most impactful aspects of these failures was France's reliance on military forces to achieve their objectives. French leadership made the miscalculation that the heart of the instability of the Sahel was Islamic militant groups, and as such, they focused their efforts towards eliminating this threat through military might. While there are in fact many extremist groups operating in the Sahel, including groups with links to Al-Qaeda, this is only a small factor in a much more complex situation. This military-centric solution failed to address nationwide calls for democratization and other political reforms, which were the main drivers of this instability. While France and other European nations focused on these militant extremist groups trying to match force with force, the political and governmental structures of Mali became more and more unstable, fueling public unrest and deteriorating public trust in French efforts in the nation. Overall, French mistakes included treating the conflict as another front in the global war on terror, rather than a unique situation in its own right, attempting to place a one-size-fits-all military solution to a much more complex situation that would require political, economic, social, and other non-military answers. In addition, there are numerous public relation disasters that have plagued efforts, the most prominent being the release of a report in March 2021 by UN investigators, which revealed that a French airstrike in January of 2021 had killed 19 civilians at a wedding party. This is in direct contradiction to official French reports that say that a strike was carried out against the militants. Most recently, mass graves have been found, containing the bodies of upwards to 300 Malians, apparently massacred by the French forces. This revelation inflamed anti-French sentiment, hastening the withdrawal from the country. In spite of this assertion, things might not always be what they seem. Entering the picture now is the shadowy Wagner Group. This organization, officially at least, passes itself off as private military contractors, or PMCs, soldiers for hire that act independently of any government. Operating out of Russia, their connection to the Kremlin and even their existence at times has been denied by Russian officials. On previous occasions, Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated that the Wagner Group does not represent any Russian state, nor are they paid for or funded by Moscow. He also added that private military contractors are free to pursue their own interests as long as they don't violate Russian law, effectively washing his government's hands of any of the group's activities. This was not the first time the Wagner Group has been the source of controversy. According to EU officials, they have a string of human rights abuses, including rape and sexual assault, torture and extrajudicial executions in Syria, Libya, the Central African Republic, Mozambique, and Sudan. They have operations in Ukraine as part of the Russian invasion of that country. As a result, the Wagner Group has had sanctions placed on it by the European Union, and several of the group's members, including its founder Dmitry Utkin, as well as oligarch Yevgeny Prigozhin, who has close ties to the President Putin and is believed to be the primary financier of the Wagner Group. These sanctions include travel bans as well as the freezing of financial assets within EU territory. In Africa, they've been involved for several years, acting as security forces for many nations in the Sahel, including the Central African Republic, where they exert tremendous influence over the government there. They essentially run the Central African Republic. General Stephen Townsend, commander of American and Armed Forces in Africa, stated at a Senate hearing, "The group provides security for government officials as well as gold and diamond mines and other vital pieces of infrastructure. They also help put down rebel groups that undermine the government of the CAR. In Mali, they've been involved at least as far back as 2021, when Mali made the arrangements for about 1,000 of the Russian mercenaries to help provide security and to bolster the unstable government that had recently been installed in a coup. Now, this was done despite the potential strain on relations with France and other Western nations, who were dissatisfied with Russia's growing influence. In response to the arrangement, a spokesman for the Malian Defense Ministry stated that Mali intends to diversify its relations in the medium term to ensure the security of the country. Russian interests in the region appear to be simple and straightforward. The Kremlin identifies a weak or unstable government in Africa, one that's shunned by Western powers. The Kremlin recognizes the government, granting it a degree of legitimacy while at the same time keeping it propped up with military aid via the Wagner Group. And in exchange, they're able to extract concessions for resources including gold, oil, diamonds, natural gas, and other minerals. If necessary, they can deny involvement, citing the Wagner Group's nature as an independent group of private military contractors, while at the same time undermining Russia's geopolitical enemies in the West. In order to encourage local governments to support Moscow over Western governments such as Paris, the Wagner Group has been accused of leading a disinformation campaign to discredit French efforts in the country. One of the most flagrant acts of anti-French propaganda involved the discovery, quote-unquote, of a mass grave outside of a military base in Gossi. In April of 2022, it was revealed by French intelligence services several Caucasian soldiers, presumably of the Wagner Group, were seen arriving at the Gossi military base, which had previously been under French control, but had been turned over to the Malians. Aerial reconnaissance footage showed the soldiers, along with Malian military personnel, sleeping at the base overnight. The next morning, those same soldiers were seen traveling about 4 kilometers east, and were shown throwing sand on a pile of about a dozen bodies. Shortly afterward, a series of tweets revealing all of the bodies, as well as graphic video footage, was released, and on accounts either made by the Wagner Group or from accounts that support Russian involvement in the region. This is what the French left behind when they left their base at Gossi. These are excerpts from a video that were taken after they left. "We can't keep silent about this," stated one account, believed to have been created by the Wagner Group. The French have refuted such claims, releasing the surveillance footage. It was known that the French turned over the control of the Malian forces on March 19th, in what was reported as a safe, orderly, and transparent manner. The next day, the vehicles arrived, unloading military equipment as well as the apparent Wagner Group personnel. After spending the night, the soldiers are then seen traveling to the site of the mass grave. One of the soldiers is believed to have been carrying a camera, which was used to take the images that were distributed through social media. Shortly after, the first tweets and other posts were sent, accusing the French military of committing this atrocity. There have been other atrocities reported, with an estimated 300 people found dead and thrown into other mass graves. They do contain military personnel, but they also contain a high number of civilians. Though there have been attempts to pass these crimes off as the fault of the French or other Western power, most of the evidence points to the Wagner Group's involvement. In addition to projecting Russian influence in the region, helping Moscow to influence local governments, as well as securing supplies of vital natural resources, the Wagner Group also has a goal of undermining and diluting Western influence in Africa. They not only provide muscle to unstable governments, but have also engaged in what has been described as a charm offensive. They sponsor beauty pageants, they make films for public entertainment, and they distribute educational materials which showcase Russian involvement in the region and the benefits of cooperating with Russia. The Russian language has even been taught in many universities. The ultimate goal of Wagner's involvement seems to be as a coercive tool, promoting Russian influence, while at the same time weakening Western influence. Many experts in the West believe that Africa is a major front in Moscow's campaign to undermine Western-backed democracies and the US-led West. The Wagner Group represents a cost-effective way to conduct such an operation. At any time, around only 2,000 of the group's operatives are active, meaning that there's a large impact for such a minimal investment. So far, this investment has paid off. When the United Nations voted to condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, 17 of the 35 abstentions were by African nations, many of which have significant involvement with the Wagner Group. We really hope you enjoyed this video. Please support the channel by hitting like and the subscribe buttons. And I know everybody and their moms is saying this on YouTube, but your support means a lot to us. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.